This is Michael Bosey. Welcome to my podcast, Marketing Without the Marketing. Happy you can join me today. And I just kicked off a series about podcasting for authors in particular. Though, I hope that others can get something out of this as well. Others meaning other creatives like musicians, visual artists, and folks who are trying to get their work out there, especially now when we can't meet in person. And in the first episode, I went over sort of, why you would want to do this, all the things that are really good about podcasting in general and specifically for this particular constituency. So I invite you to go back and check that out. But I want to talk about nuts and bolts in this episode. So let's get right into it. Okay, there are 3 parts to this strategy. Number 1, content. Number 2, delivery, and number 3, promotion. So content is sort of the writing and recording of episodes. Delivery is setting everything up that you need to get it out there. So your website, your audio host, and then doing a launch properly. And then promotion, which is using email, social, and podcast syndication to get the podcast out there. So let's devote this episode to the writing and recording. And I start with this first, just because I want to give you the opportunity to consider this as a strategy to see how it fits first before you even, think about going further and learning how to do the recording and hosting and all that, right? Let's just see if this fits first, because this is not going to be for everyone. All right, a basic format that should work for this, this virtual book group or rolling book tour would look like this. Each episode would have a brief welcome or introduction. You need to do this because people might be entering the podcast midstream, right? You can't expect someone to pick it up like they would a book and start on page 1. They might show up episode 20 or 30 or 40. So we need to do a brief introduction, even just a couple minutes. Then we'd move on to a reading from the book itself, right? So this is your chance to get your work in front of people. Then a section on questions for discussion and some answers to those or things that you'll respond to as the author. And then a brief outro with a CTA or call to action is what we call that in marketing speak, with something for them to do, which quite obviously might be to buy the book if they're just listening and discovering this about you, or to submit a question about the book. Like those would be 2 obvious ones. So that's the basic format: a welcome, reading, a question and answer section, and then an outro with something for the listener to do. Now, to situate this for you, let's think about how long this would be. My guideline here in the strategies I've done is we want to have at least 50 episodes that we do, and maybe 100 or more if we could. So, for instance, if you got a 300-page book, that's about 3 to 6 pages per episode. The last author I worked with on this strategy, his book was about 80 short chapters, which was perfect. Now, most people read aloud between 8,000 and 9,000 words per hour, so that's about 130 to 150 words per minute. So that means a 1,000-word chapter is about 6 to 8 minutes, which is perfect. And look, I tend to read a little faster. You may read slower, right? Just read the chapter aloud, time yourself, and get a sense of this. Now, another strategy that you could do is a paired strategy. So instead of one episode containing everything, you could do one episode that's really just the readings, and then one episode for the Q&A, right? So that maybe you publish twice a week, right? So you do the reading, and then you take questions, and you answer those in a paired episode, which that can work as well. All right, let's move on to the recording. I don't want you to be intimidated. Anyone can do this. I've trained rank amateurs with no audio experience, but you need 2 things: a USB microphone and software for recording. And there are tons of options for both. I've collected all of my recommendations on a page, left a link in the show notes for you, but it's at controlmousemedia.com/podcasting-equipment. I made a link so that this is easy for you. Just see the show notes. Now, for me, I use the Apogee Mic Plus USB microphone. You plug it right into your computer, so it's super easy to use. But there are other cheaper options as well if you just want to try this on. And most people use something called a Blue Yeti. Again, USB microphone plugs right into your computer. Now, for software, this is also on that podcasting equipment page. I use GarageBand because it comes free on the Mac and it works really great for podcasting. But also I use Reaper with the band for doing music. That's a pretty inexpensive option, but not free. It's about $60 or so. But I've also used something called Anchor, which is free. They're now owned by Spotify. And some of my students in my class have used this as well to good effect. It has the added benefit of having people be able to leave you, voice messages. But most people use something called Audacity, which is also free. And again, I got links to all these on that page to help you with this. So that's really all you need to get started, right? You got a show concept. You've got your USB mic. You've got some software to record it in. So I would invite you to try out a couple episodes, right? Just do it as a prototype. You're not going to publish them. Just try to create something. Do a reading. Get used to doing this. Even if it's with a cheap mic and a free software like GarageBand or Audacity, just try it. See if this feels good to you or not. Because really, you got to know if this is something that you can stick with for a while. You don't want to start this, put a lot of effort into it, and then quit, right? You want to be in it for the long haul and think of producing, like I said, 50 to 100 episodes. All right, hope that this gets you thinking about this strategy. Next thing I want to do is talk about where to house all this stuff, and that's having a website and a place to host the audio files. But we'll do that in the next episode. Like I said, I want to keep these to 10 minutes or less. And also, I don't want to intimidate you with too much technical stuff. Truly, anyone can podcast. All right, hope that you find this to be helpful, gives you some food for thought, and we'll see you in the next episode of this series. Thanks for listening.